Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome. You're listening to Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio with your host, Darren Fatman McDuffie. And now, prepare to get fat. Hey, what's cracking? And welcome back to another episode of Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio, brought to you by I'mTheFatMan.com. And I am your host, Darren McDuffie. So tonight, we have another great show for you, another awesome show with Carla. I'm not going to try to pronounce Carla's last name. I'm afraid I'm going to hack it up. She told me how to pronounce it, but I got a feeling I'm not going to pronounce it right, so I'm just going to let her pronounce her own name. But before I bring Carla on to talk about raw feeding for your pets, just remember to connect with me on Facebook. You can connect with me at the Fat Man. It's my Facebook, facebook.com/I'mTheFatMan. And then you can also connect with me on Twitter at @thefat_man. And fat is spelled P-H-A-T. Don't forget to connect with me on there. Really want this community to grow and get health information out to you so you can be healthy and fit. So tonight, again, we have a great show for you. This is something that's a little bit differently. Normally we're talking about everything on the human end, but tonight we're going to be talking about animals. For those of you who don't know, I probably mentioned having a dog. My girlfriend and I have a dog, and we introduced our dog to raw feeding a couple of months ago, actually through Carla. And I wanted to have Carla on to talk a little bit about how she got started and how you can start raw feeding your pets. So let me bring Carla on.
Hi, Darren. How are you?
Hey, Carla. Welcome to Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Good. So let's get into this raw feeding for pets. I know a lot of people have no idea about raw feeding, and it wasn't actually until I discovered you through Facebook, and I was actually looking for to buy some stuff for myself and really discovered raw feeding, and we decided to take our dog Bree over to the raw feeding route. But how did you get started with all of this?
Well, it was actually by accident. I have Great Danes, and one of them is all white, and white dogs tend to suffer from allergies more than, other dogs. And we had this issue with his skin, and, none of the foods and none of the medicines and sprays that the vet recommended worked. And finally I said, I looked online, I did some research, and I said, this is my last chance. I'm going to try this raw meat diet that everyone raves about. And ever since then, all his symptoms went away, and it kind of spread. The word of mouth spread in the neighborhood that I was doing this because I was buying so much meat at a time, 52 Great Danes, as you can imagine. And it kind of caught on, and I started in my garage, and then it kind of just spread out. The word spread out, and I, ventured out and turned this into a business.
Cool. Yeah, and I've watched you grow. I remember I used to come to the house to pick up stuff, and now I'm coming to a warehouse. You've grown, and then you've now over the country, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Great. So here's the one question I wanted to ask, because I know we used to do this for our dog, and just to start everything off with the questions here, can dogs eat fruits and vegetables?
It's a very controversial topic, and it really comes down to personal belief. Should they eat fruits and vegetables? Probably not. There's not really much benefit to it. Does it harm them in any way? No. It does not do any damage or harm unless the dog is allergic to the fruits and vegetables. But it's really kind of like a filler or a supplemental feeding. It's more so, like I said, personal preference. They can eat them, but do they really need it to thrive and survive? No, they don't.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned allergies a couple of times here, and I know that, human beings can have, food allergies and food sensitivities. What's been your experience with dogs having these allergies, and what types of things are they have? You mentioned your Great Danes. What kind of things were they allergic to?
Well, a lot of my customers come to me because their dogs are suffering from a skin allergy or a food allergy, and it's basically you kind of notice that the skin turns flaky. A lot of people see that their dogs lose hair or have pimples that kind of pop, and then the hair kind of scabs over and falls off. Other dogs just break out into hives. There's a lot of different issues that come up as a result of food allergies, and it's really just the fact that dogs cannot handle and cannot really process processed and cooked foods. So that kind of erupts all over their body, and it's really a huge issue right now for a lot of pet owners that needs to be addressed.
Right. What about the dog foods? I know that we had our dog on a dry food diet at one point, and we made the switch over to raw feeding. And what about the dry food that's out there? Like, you go to the grocery store and I see these people with these big bags of, Alpo and things like that. But is there a danger behind the dry feeding at all?
There is, there's some brands out there that are pretty good. They're small family brands that really focus on the quality of the food and the ingredients, but there's a lot of really large chains and commercial diets like Alpo or Kibbles and Bits and other just very low-end brands that if you kind of turn the bag over and look at the ingredients, you'll probably notice that there's actually nothing really in that food that's going to be beneficial for your dog. Dogs don't thrive on grains. They don't do well with corn. And, when you see anything like cornmeal or any grains in the food or just words you can't even pronounce, then you know that there's something wrong with your dog food. So that's probably the reason why we see so many sick dogs, because the pet food company and the pet food industry is not very regulated. So they can put anything in your pet food. There's a very great book that I got turned on when I started doing this. It's called Food Pets Die For. And it's a woman that went into the pet food industry undercover and kind of just realized and wrote about everything she discovered that they were putting into pet food. And it is appalling, the stuff that goes in there that you don't even know about.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I had Ray Audette on the show, and he's a big caveman diet, paleo diet type person, and he had mentioned something about dogs and grains, and specifically mentioned that was one of the reasons why dogs were getting so much cancer, because of the use of the corn in the dog food. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, Whole Dogs Naturally just published an article recently about the mold that's been growing on the corn that goes in these dog foods. And it turns out that it's actually poisonous, that the mold that's on this corn that these companies are using in the dog food is full of cancer-causing cells, and it's just downright garbage. And it's just sad that we rely on these companies to do what's best for our pets, and yet they're giving us stuff that is actually causing them to get sick.
Yeah, it's amazing how many dogs had cancer. I know before we got this dog, we had a dog before that, and a dog had cancer in the nose and had to go through this big operation. And if I knew what I know now, I would have never have fed them the type of food that was being fed to them at the time. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the grains and the other things that are put into the food now are giving the dogs cancers.
Absolutely. I don't think people know, and I think they're now starting to figure it out.
Yeah. So let's talk about just what I noticed that our dog really loves the organ meats, like anything that the tripe that we get from you, even though it smells bad, she loves that stuff. Are dogs naturally gravitate more towards organ meats versus like a muscle meat, let's say like a chicken leg, or is there no preference at all?
I think that it's really a case-by-case basis. Dogs are picky like we are. There's things that they love and there's things that they don't really like. It's funny that your dog loves organ meat, because a lot of dogs don't like organs, not because of the taste, but because of the texture itself. And but you mentioned the green tripe, which is the stomach of the cow. It's not bleached, so it's green tripe, and it has fermented grass in it, which we grind all up, and it's kind of a natural probiotic for the dogs, and it stinks, like you mentioned. It smells like a barn. But it's dogs tend to gravitate towards things that stink, which is why you might see them rolling around in some like dead toad on the road, or they find a little bit of poop on the yard and they roll around in it. That's something that they gravitate towards. And It's funny because the green stripe is probably one of our most popular products, and it just stinks. But it's actually really good for them, and it's great that your dog loves organ meats, because that's actually a challenge for a lot of raw feeders to get their dogs to eat organ meat.
But then again, my dog likes everything. That's the thing.
That's a good thing. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, she'll eat anything. If we were chopping up anything in the kitchen, she wants to have it, and we're just careful about what we give her. But how about this is one of the things I researched, and I know that she likes it, and every now and then we'll drop a little bit in her food, but coconut oil for dogs. Have you had any experience with that?
Oh, yeah. That's actually one of the supplements that I personally use on a daily basis with my dogs. It has to be unrefined and organic, but I tell all my customers, if you're looking for a good supplement to put in your dog's food every day, a teaspoon of coconut oil every day does wonders. It helps with yeast. It's an antibacterial. It's just a really great all-around supplement that you can add to the food that really helps with a lot of different issues that your dog may have. Now, it is, a very fatty oil, so any dog that has pancreatitis or issues with fatty food should probably stay away from it, but any other healthy dog would probably benefit from having that included in their diet.
How much is too much with the coconut oil?
Well, the thing with coconut oil is that it can also, loosen stools, so I would say that maybe half a teaspoon per 10 to 20 pounds would work.
Okay. Yeah, I know we don't give our dog that much. About half a teaspoon. We don't try to saturate her with the whole coconut oil thing. Let's talk a little bit about supplements. You mentioned that coconut oil was a supplement that you use, but what other supplements are beneficial for dogs?
Again, it's a case-by-case basis, but, depending on the dog, apple cider vinegar is really great to include in their water. And that's just an overall, supplement you can use that just kind of helps with everything across the board. It doesn't do any harm, even if your dog is perfectly healthy. It's really great to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the water. Some people, they choose to add probiotics, which I think is a great solution because a lot of the dog's health revolves around their gut. So, doing probiotics 1 month on, 1 month off is a great option as well. We have fish oils. As long as you know where your fish oil is being sourced from and you check the label and make sure there's no added ingredients, that's a great supplement as well. And I think that's about it. You don't want to do too much because a raw diet really encompasses and captures everything that they need as long as it's, full of variety and you kind of include a lot of different proteins. But those, I think, apple cider vinegar, fish oil, and coconut oil are like the three go-tos.
And what does apple cider vinegar do for the dog?
It's full of nutrients. It's a natural antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral, and it also helps again with any yeast overgrowth or candida. And it's just to maintain and keep healthy. I've heard that even for us, drinking like a glass of water with a little bit of apple cider vinegar in it is very beneficial and just kind of keeps your whole gut working and nice and healthy.
Yeah. So dogs can kind of have the same kind of issues that we have, because I know I had a bout with candida here a couple of weeks ago, and you're mentioning that with dogs as well. Can they get a lot of the digestive issues that we have? And one of the things I wonder, too, this is a double question. One of the things that I wonder, too, is as far as eating raw meat and parasites. Are dogs more equipped for dealing with parasites from the raw meat? It's another controversial topic. If you're going to be feeding something that you caught in the wild, if you're a hunter and you catch, you kill a deer and you have venison meat, or if you go fishing and you have a fresh fish that you catch, then yes, you have to be wary of parasites because that animal's in the wild. And it's suggested that you freeze the meat up to like 4 to 6 weeks just to kill any parasites that it may have. But if you're feeding store-bought meat that's for human consumption, and that's the only kind of meat that we sell, then you know that the meat is free of parasites because we're not going to be eating meats that are full of parasites. It's just really you need to know where your meat is coming from and where it's sourced from. Right. What are some of the benefits that you've seen from just raw feeding your animals?
Oh, man, there's so many. To start, they do get mental stimulation from chewing and working on their food, which, you'll see like a 12-year-old dog with white teeth, free of tartar and without dental disease. They have, they're not susceptible to allergies. They have shiny, smooth, oil-free coats. They have a lot more energy and vitality. They really thrive on this diet. They don't have bad breath. They don't go to the vet as much. You won't have as many issues. And, one of the favorite benefits of raw feeding for most dog owners is that since the body uses all of the protein that you're feeding the dog, there's very little waste. So the very little waste that does come out doesn't really smell, and it disintegrates within like 2 days.
Yeah, you took my question. I was going to ask you about that because that's one of the things that's one of the things that I noticed immediately, because it was the time when we switched her over to the raw food that I was walking her, and normally it was like clockwork. I would take her out in the morning, she would use the bathroom, and then we'd pick it up and bring it back to the house and throw it away in the plastic bags. But I just noticed that there are a couple of times after going on a raw food diet from switching from a conventional diet where she would never use the bathroom, and I'm like, my girlfriend's name is Robin. I'm like, Robin, is something wrong with Bree? But we went on and did some research and found out once you go to the raw food diet that the dog doesn't use the bathroom as much. And now, that's a good benefit because now I don't have to pick it up as often as I used to have to.
Exactly. On the kibble there's so much in that kibble that they don't use that their body has a lot of waste. And on a raw diet, they're built to digest and break down and use protein. So there's very little that comes out, which is an added bonus.
Yeah. What about cats? Now, are cats any different from dogs, or is it kind of like the same? Because I had some people on the Facebook event asking about cats, but are they different from dogs, or do they still do the raw feeding diet as well?
I'm not the most savvy person on cats, but I do know this. Every vet that I've spoken to and all the research that I've done on my end shows that cats are the truest carnivores out there. I don't think that there is any vet out there that would disagree with that fact, actually. And, cats actually are hunters, and they like to hunt, and they thrive on a raw diet. If you have a cat and you can get them to switch to raw, I think that is the best thing that you can do for them. Yeah,
I've seen some cats just hanging around here in Florida, and people throw fish out and stuff like that, and they are killing fish.
Yep.
I would think that they're carnivores as well. Christine in the Facebook event asked that question about her having a picky cat, and she wanted to switch the cat over to a raw food diet, but she was concerned, and I think this is also a concern with dog owners as well, that if the cat is going to get enough vitamins.
Well, that's what I was saying. Cats are a little bit different than dogs because they have different bodily functions. For example, a cat requires taurine to survive, but their bodies don't produce it naturally, whereas a dog does. So when you are switching to a raw diet with a cat, you need to make sure that you're feeding them the right and proper way. So, for example, to make sure that they're getting enough taurine in their diet, you would need to include heart and add a little bit of extra chicken hearts or, any other kind of heart into the diet to make sure that they get that taurine. And, if anyone does want to switch their cat and they're a little bit nervous and want to make sure that they're going to do it the right way, there's a really amazing website out there called feline-nutrition.org, and she is amazing. She really breaks it down for you and kind of tells you everything you need to know before you jump into the diet.
Right. Now, what about dogs on the dog end? Because I know that was a concern of ours when we switched the dog over to raw food. We're like, well, is she going to get enough nutrients? Is she going to get enough vitamins? And I also think that that's why people think that, let's mix in some vegetables, because they start thinking like a dog is human. So, is the dog getting enough nutrition from raw meat alone?
If you're doing it the right way, then absolutely. Now, if you think that a raw diet consists of throwing some raw chicken and ground beef, then no, absolutely not. The key to a raw diet is first doing your research and knowing what you're doing. And then the second step would be to you need to offer variety. So you need to at least include 3 to 4 proteins at least in their diet, because just like you and I would not survive on just eating chicken and broccoli, they cannot survive on just eating 1 or 2 proteins. And then the other most important thing is to always include organ meat in their diet. And a lot of people get confused thinking that heart and gizzards and, other different parts of the body of the animal are organs, when in fact the only organs that are truly considered organs for the raw diet are anything that secretes, which would be liver, kidneys, thymus, adrenal. Those would be organ meats, and those are an essential part of the diet.
What is the Munster mash made out of? Our dog loves that stuff. I don't know what it is made out of, but she loves that stuff.
I came up with the monster mash when I had all these customers telling me how picky their dogs were and that they wouldn't eat their organ meat. And, they were freaking out because they knew how essential the organ meat was. So what I did is I ground up 3 items that are considered muscle meat. I did green tripe, trachea, which is the windpipe of the cow, and I did the esophagus, which is the cartilage around that. And I ground all that up because, dogs love that. It's mushy, it's soft, it tastes like beef. And then I mixed in some ground organs in, and then I mixed it all up, and that's actually our monster mash, and it makes the most picky eaters eat their organs.
She loves that stuff. She's eating it now. Well, not now, but she ate it earlier.
Yeah, it sells really well.
Yeah, we just started her on one of the big containers of that Munster mash, but she loves it. I think that's her favorite out of everything that we buy from you for her.
Oh, that's awesome.
What about preparing? Is there a way that because I know when we did this, we just decided not to buy. We used to buy Blue Buffalo was the food that we bought for her, but when we decided to do it, we just said no more Blue Buffalo, and then we just went in to doing the raw feeding. Is there a way to kind of gradually ease your dog into raw feeding, or would you recommend doing what we did? We just said no more dry food, and we started feeding her the raw food.
I recommend doing what you did. I tell most of my customers who I help transition over, we're going to do this cold turkey, fast the dog the day before you're going to switch, and start them on an empty stomach, and we're just going to introduce the raw diet and take it from there. Kibble digests at a completely different rate and require different enzymes to break it down, and it kind of sits in the dog's stomach. It turns into sludge, and it sits there for 5 to 6 hours while it digests, while raw takes, completely different enzymes to break it down, and within 2 hours it's digested. So it's never good to kind of mix the two. I don't ever suggest for anyone to mix the two, but if you're going to make the transition, definitely go cold turkey so that the dog can start building the proper enzymes and really start using the food without having anything interfere with it.
Yeah. What about the budget? Being on a budget. Someone who switches from going from doing the kibbles or the dry food into the raw feeding. Is that better on the budget? I think that it is for us, but I wanted you to kind of talk about that, and maybe you had some experiences with people or owners coming and saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm saving a lot more money by doing the raw feeding."
Yes and no. Obviously, if you have a small dog, it's a lot more affordable to do raw. And in the long term, it is more affordable to do raw because you're going to be going to the vet less, and you're going to have less health issues that you're going to be paying for. But if you are like me and you have 4 dogs and 2 of them are Great Danes and you're going through about 7 pounds of food a day, it's probably going to cost more than kibble. But like I said, in the long run, I probably go to the vet once a year just for yearly checkups, and I don't have any other issues that I have to pay out of pocket for. So in the long run, for me, it's worth it.
Yeah, we've noticed that too. The dog we had before, it was always a vet visit, and we rarely ever go to the vet. And then another thing that I noticed about her is that when we adopted her from the Humane Society, she had like this spot on her eye, and my girlfriend was really, really concerned about it. And then once we started the raw feeding, the spot on her, it's like a film or something over her eye, it went away. And she was also, we noticed that when we had her on kibbles, she wasn't as energetic. She used to jump up on the couch, and then when we started the raw feeding and all this other stuff, she's like, now she just jumps up on the couch again, and she's energetic, and she's about 9 now, so she's in really good shape for her age. So
it definitely helps with all those things.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this, but this is something I wanted to throw back out there. You don't ever want to, do you feed a dog cooked food at any time, or is it never admissible to do that?
Well, if you're going to do cooked food, cooked food is still better than kibble. If you're going to cook some ground beef and, mix it up with different things and just do boneless things, then that's perfectly fine, and it's always better than kibble, in my opinion. You can even lightly sear the food and leave it a little bit raw in the middle so that you're not processing it completely. But never, ever, ever give cooked bones. That is what causes a lot of dogs to die. And people, this is the big misconception that people don't know, is that raw bones are safe for dogs because they don't splinter, and a dog's acidity in their stomach can break them down. Once you cook that bone, you change the whole molecular level of that bone, and it can splinter and it can perforate their guts, and that's when you have an issue. And that's why you never feed cooked bones.
All right, so you never do cooked bones.
Never.
What about
not even smoked bones?
What about things like eggs? Can dogs eat eggs?
Absolutely. I include a raw egg in my dog's meals probably 3 to 4 times a week. An egg is probably like the most perfectly balanced meal, or little little round thing of perfection that you can give a dog if you give them the shell too, and it's actually really beneficial for them to have that. The only thing I have to say about eggs is that if you don't buy pasture-raised or organic or unwashed eggs, then don't include the shell, because they do spray commercial eggs are sprayed to last longer on the shelf, and you don't want those chemicals being given to your dog.
Yeah, you don't want to eat those as a human being either.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did some research. I was snooping around on the internet, and I found one of your and I'm big on this, the whole vaccination things for human beings. There's been a lot of discussion on that, but I was able to find a video that you did on the vaccinations for dogs, and you kind of changed your mind about that whole thing after your experience with your was that a Dachshund that you have?
Yes, that's correct. I also help with some local dog rescues, and the first thing that it's implanted in your head is vaccinate your dog yearly, every time. Do it. It's going to protect them. And, I listened to my vets for the first 4 years of my dog's life, and I vaccinated her every year without knowing that, the first vaccine that they get as puppies basically gives them immunization for the first 7 years of their life. So I kept poisoning her, and now the end result is my dog has liver failure, and she suffers from a lot of different symptoms, and now we're trying to treat her to kind of reverse all the damage that these vaccines have done.
And her name was Bella, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I watched the video. So you would recommend not doing the yearly shots?
I would not. I say that you should vaccinate your dog once and then go see a holistic or natural vet that can give you a letter of exemption. And, you can do a titter test, which is a test that kind of draws blood and checks to see if they still have that immunity within them. And then you know that your dog is safe and is not going to get anything. And you don't have to keep overdosing them with these diseases and these viruses that they don't really need.
You said that was what, a titter test?
Yes, TITER. And even though the state of Florida does not acknowledge or accept them, a lot of different other states around the country do.
I've never heard of that, but that's the same thing that you have to go through as a human being. You have to have some type of exemption in order to not have vaccinations, and I'm wondering why you have to have an exemption so you don't poison yourself. It's crazy.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. What about treats for your pet? I know we usually order the chicken feet. Our dog likes that. But what are some of the better treats to feed your dog?
I always tell people, you don't have to buy my treats. You can go buy any treat. Just make sure you know where it comes from, and try not to get anything processed. Try to get dehydrated stuff. Try to stay as natural as you can. You don't want to give milk, those milk biscuits that you can get, or the milk bone biscuits, nothing that's processed and full of grains and full of flour and corn and, the stuff that dogs don't need. Just try to stay as natural as possible. You can even make your own treats at home, slice a little bit of chicken breast, cook it in the oven at 200 degrees for 45 minutes, and you got a little bit of chicken jerky. And it's that simple.
Yeah, we just got a dehydrator, so we think we're going to start doing that amongst, doing stuff for ourselves here. What about feeding your dog? Because this is something that I came across where you have people that own any type of pet, a cat or a dog, and they leave the food out all day. What is I know that that's wrong, but how many times should you feed your dog per day?
Another controversial subject, and this one's more so a matter of opinion. I think a lot of people feel like dogs are their kids and they feel sorry for them if they only feed them once a day. But a lot of research has shown that dogs do better on one meal a day because it allows their gut to reset and kind of rest and recharge and then start all over. Whereas feeding them 2-3 times a day kind of just keeps them, working, keeps the gut going, and it doesn't really let the gut rest and restart. But again, it's really a personal opinion, a personal preference subject, and it's really, whether you feed twice or once a day, it's not going to do any damage to the dog.
Yeah, we usually do twice, but no more than that. And I know I'd asked you this at one point but I just wanted to kind of get it out there for the audience as well. Just natural remedies for fleas, because I know sometimes people use flea collars. They're using all of these sprays. What might be a natural deterrent for fleas?
There's a lot of different options out there, and you have to be careful with what you'd use. Anything, obviously anything that's going to kill another living being cannot be advantageous to put into your dog's body or on your dog's skin. You can look into a product called Cedarcide, which uses cedar oil to repel bugs, and you just spray them. You can do some essential oil sprays, lavender and peppermint and tea tree and a lot of other citronella. All those use just the smell of those scents kind of deters and doesn't harm the dog. You can also use diatomaceous earth, the food grade kind, which is kind of like a parasite killer, and you kind of just feed it to them, and that kind of kills all the bugs too. But you have to make sure it's food grade, because if not, you could definitely do some damage there.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, we talked about food allergies earlier. What would be a protocol to, start getting rid of food allergies in your dog? And do you know if there's a test out there that you can test for these allergies in dogs?
There's definitely a lot of different tests out there. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind probably is the one that the vet's going to tell you to do in-house at the vet office. That's going to cost you around $300 to $400, which I think is a little insane and absurd. There's other different tests that you can do. Like, for example, I have one that we sell to our customers that's $80, and it tests all the different foods and grasses and flowers and household items and things that you would never even imagine your dog could have a sensitivity to. And it just basically tests the saliva and the hair of your dog, and it comes back with a huge panel. And, a lot of dogs are just allergic to even a flea bite, which can cause a whole severe skin reaction. So it's really great to know what your dog is sensitive to, because then you know what to avoid and what to kind of stay away from so that you don't trigger these events.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if it's saliva. I know. You said the saliva and hair that they can do that testing through? Yeah,
the test that we do is you provide a hair sample and a saliva sample, and they use that to kind of, figure out what your dog is having issues with.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Our dog does a ton of scratching. We're just trying to figure out why she does all that scratching all the time. So
the one that you have now is scratching a lot?
Yeah, she scratches a lot at night, and she bites on herself continuously. So we're just trying to figure out, I thought it might be fleas or something to that nature, but I'm not sure.
It could be, and it also could be, if you're not including fish and a little bit of fatty meats in their diet, they might just have dry skin, and they just need a little bit of a boost, including a little bit of sardines in their diet, or adding the fish oil or the coconut oil. That really helps with the itching as well.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll try that. I just started putting coconut oil back into her food, and the other thing is that we just started her with eating some salmon, so that might be something. I haven't noticed yet if she stopped scratching a lot, but okay. I'll pay more attention to it. Pay more attention to it now. You also do stuff for dogs, but you also sell stuff for human consumption as well, correct? Oh, she dropped off the air. Hope she realizes and she'll call back in. Bear with me 1 second here. Live radio. You gotta dig it. So we'll wait for her to call back in here real quick. Yeah, you dropped off, huh?
Yes, I lost you.
That's okay. That's okay. I forgot what I was going to ask you. I was just in the middle of a question. Oh, the stuff for human consumption as well. So you do sell stuff for human consumption.
Yes, we actually we offer a grass-fed line called White Oak Pastures that some people might be familiar. They also are seen in Whole Foods now, and all that comes straight from the farm to us. We stick it in the freezer, and then it just goes to you guys. And that's one of our healthier lines, and we try to support and really offer people and educate people about sustainable farming so that you eat better as well.
Yeah. And you do eggs and stuff like that, because I'm always getting my eggs from you. Trying to remember what else you do as well that people out there might be interested in. And all of this stuff, do you ship? You can ship the White Oak pasture stuff as well if they're interested in purchasing grass-fed stuff?
Absolutely. We ship the white oaks all over, and, we don't ship the eggs just because they're fragile, but the other item you were probably thinking of is all the raw dairy, and that we ship as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And what's up with the beef short ribs? They have any beef short ribs.
I gotta get you those
things.
beef short ribs.
Yeah, I love those things. We put them in a crock pot and we put barbecue sauce in and let them simmer, and they just melt in your mouth. And the last two times I've ordered them from you, they have not have them. So
the thing, the downside about supporting these smaller farms is that they don't mass produce like other, factory farm meats do. So it's kind of like a cyclical thing where you have to wait for the animal to get large enough to be slaughtered to be able to get all those cuts of meat again. And we're kind of in a off season where they're preparing for the holidays, and right now they're low on beef, they're low on lamb, and we're just kind of waiting for all these cuts to be replenished so that we can get you your short ribs.
Yeah, I hope so. I love those things. What about you? I know, like Thanksgiving is coming up. You do turkeys as well, so they could order turkeys as well if they wanted to.
Absolutely, we're going to be offering White Oak Pastures, pasture-raised turkeys, and their stuff is very good.
Yeah. All right, Carla, is there anything else you would like to add to the show? I think you have been one of my better shows, like more blunt. Like most of my guests are like, they take a lot of time to answer the questions. You are somewhat like me. You just answer the question and then you move on. But is there anything you'd like to add to the show?
I just want people to know that you should do your research before you make a decision to do raw feeding. It is a commitment, but it is a really healthy and good commitment you can do for your pet. And don't be scared. I know it's overwhelming and it can sound scary and kind of weird, but once you get into it and you see the benefits and you really see that it's not that big of a deal, it's really like so satisfying to see your dog or your cat so happy about mealtime and thriving and doing so well without having to go to the vet every 2 months.
Yeah, I agree, because our dog is like a new dog. Cause like she has so much energy now, and other than when she just wants to lay around and sleep. Especially for being an older dog. Yeah, she has a lot of energy, and she's jumping back on the couch, and we were really worried at one point because she wouldn't jump on the couch. She would just get on the edge of the couch and wait for us to pick her up. Aww. And then now she's jumping back on the couch, so we know that something is working. At least we're feeding her right. And
exactly.
Give us your website. She didn't mention your website. What's your website?
The website is rawfeedingmiami.com.
Okay, and they can reach out to you there, and they can do an order online, correct?
Absolutely. We also have Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're always posting a lot of informational pictures and just showing everyone how other raw feeders feed their dogs and the benefits of it. So anytime people have questions or need help, the raw feeding community is very welcoming, and we're all here to help.
Yeah. What's your Instagram handle? Because I don't think I'm connected with you on Instagram.
It's Raw Feeding Miami.
Raw Feeding. Okay. I'll look you up and connect with you on Instagram. Hey, Carla,
Perfect.
Thank you for being on the show. And what I'll do is I will take your websites and put them in the Facebook event so people can connect with you. I know there were some people in there who had pets, but I'm also going to tell them that they can reach out to you and order the stuff, the grass-fed stuff as well, because a lot of times I'll get questions from people, where do you get grass-fed this? Where do you get grass-fed that? So now, I'll just share your link and let them know that they can get it.
Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and I will see you, I guess, Saturday to pick up my stuff.
Yes, when you pick up your food.
Yeah. Thanks for being
Darren.
on the show. I really appreciate it.
I do too. Thank you so much.
All right. Enjoy your night.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.